Okay, leading off here this weekend for us at Ford Championship Weekend is Roger Penske, one of the most accomplished owners in the history of motorsports. Roger's organization has won 12 open-wheel championships. 15 times they've been to victory lane in Indianapolis 500. He's won one NASCAR Nationwide Series championship with Brad Keselowski in 2010 and is seeking the organization's first NASCAR Sprint Cup Series title this Sunday afternoon here at Homestead-Miami Speedway. So, Roger, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. And maybe just for starters, if you could just talk about the performance of your race teams this year, and in particular the number 2 car, who is points leader heading into the season finale.
Well, obviously, we're thrilled to be in the position we are here. At the last race at Homestead. I think that we look back on the season. I guess it's been a building season from the very starting point with Brad 3 or 4 years ago when we first got together. But I think, as I sum it up, he's earned the respect of the garage area, the drivers, the crews, the officials, and certainly he's gained a lot of fans. And for me, basically it's been consistency, and I think he's a great athlete. You'd have to put him right at the top from the standpoint of what he's been able to accomplish, over the last several weeks. And, it's his chance on Sunday to get to the top, a rung that he's been trying for many years. Obviously, his parents have supported him, as many of these great drivers that come out of families who have racing backgrounds, and he's certainly done that. And to me, we're very fortunate to have him part of Penske Racing. He's made us a better team.
Thank you, Roger. We'll take questions now for Roger Penske. If you would, raise your hand. We have a couple of wireless mic holders. We'll start here with Monty. We'll go to Lee, and then we'll go back in the back to Claire. State your name, affiliation, and please try to limit yourself to one question. Monty, Lee, and then Claire. Go ahead. Monty's right there on your left. Thank you.
Microphones coming from everywhere. Monty Dutton, Gaston Gazette. Roger, in your long career in motorsports, you've had so many drivers, from Mark Donohue and Rick Mears and dozens of others. Of whom does Brad Keselowski remind you?
Well, I'd have to say, digging down deep, a lot like Rick Mears, really understated, but someone that when it was time to dig deep and make it happen, the consistency, and, obviously he's a winner. And I'd have to put him in that category, which is a pretty special class as far as I'm concerned.
Let's go with Lee Spencer and then Claire B. Lang. Go ahead, Lee.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. Most people know open wheel is really your true love, but you've dabbled here for 40 years now. Why did you keep coming back? And, what is it about this? When did it change where this really became a focus? Was it after the first nationwide championship? Was it just Brad in general? I mean, what really made you guys dig in and put your emphasis here on NASCAR?
Lee, I think I'm a goal-oriented person, and there's no question that winning a NASCAR championship at the elite level is something that everybody in racing wants to accomplish, and we hadn't done that. And I think we spread ourselves through many different series with great success, but we've never quite gotten to the top. Obviously, in 93 and 94, we were second and third with Rusty. And then we really have not, had the results. But to me, this is about an opportunity. It's not about how much money you have and what you can buy on the racetrack. It's about the people. It's about the human capital that we've been able to put together. As I said to Paul Wolf and to certainly to Brad and Tim and Travis Geisler and Mike Nelson, I said, you folks are attracting some great people to our organization. And this business has changed. It's more technical now. It's a little bit in our bailiwick. And to me, we're executing. And, with a leader like Brad who really cares about the team, it's not about just Brad Keselowski. I want to let you know that. He is every day trying to make our team better. So, that's motivating me. And, this is a great opportunity. Obviously, when you're racing against, I call it the gold standard, the best in the business. Rick Hendricks is a great friend of mine. I have a lot of respect for him, both on the business side and also certainly on the racing side. And Johnson is a cool cat. He knows how to get it done. He's done it 5 times. So just being in the league with him, I guess it's, the final day you're teeing up, the last 18, and we're in the same foursome. So that's a pretty good day.
Let's go with Claire B., Shannon, and then Mike Brunell. Go ahead, Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Roger, Brad has been very clever. He's been very light. He seems to, we're all looking for a crack. We haven't seen it. Jimmy sort of trying to get into his head yesterday and saying, the pressure really hits once you get on the track. When you least expect it, all of a sudden the magnitude of this is going to hit. What have you seen in Brad? Do you really believe that he's handling all this the way that we're seeing it? And how much do you think that all of this is going to affect him in one moment before this race is over?
Well, I think that, he's been training, over the last 13 or 14 weeks to get where he is. And, obviously when you look at the consistency, starting 24th and many times during that race, he let people go by because he knew where he needed to go, be ready to go with 100 laps to go last week, certainly the race at Texas. He's a calculating driver. He's smart. I think his windshield is much wider than many of the drivers, meaning he's seeing what's going on, and he's, I think, rehearsed it with Paul, things that can happen. He's done it with a team, and he's a student. And I think today we've got a great athlete, a great race driver, but also someone that's thinking. He's a thinking man's driver, which is very important in today's sport.
Let's go to the right over here to Shannon. Raise your hand, Shannon. Mike Brunell to the left, and then David Newton.
Shannon Spake, ESPN. Just looking back at, in September, the situation with Will Power, wondering what kind of advice you've given Brad and that team about what happened in that race and how you're using that experience to kind of help them this weekend.
Shannon, we haven't even talked about it. It's not even a factor as far as I'm concerned. You have Will Power, who is the best on road courses, trying to get his feet under him on ovals. This is a case where at a mile-and-a-half track, a place that Brad has excelled this year. So to me, two different circumstances, not a discussion item as far as Penske racing.
Over here to the left, Mike Brunell.
Mike Brunell, Detroit Free Press. Roger, you move to Ford next year, but can you speak to the commitment Dodge has provided you this year and your relationship with them? And it's strange, they could have a championship and then they're leaving the sport. You're moving over to Ford. But could you, the relationship between you and Dodge?
Well, Dodge obviously has been a great partner. We've been with them for 10 years. The support they've given us, over this last 12 months has been doubled up. In fact, the fact that they knew early on, and when you make a move like we had to, they had to know, we had to know that this change was going to be made. But I would say it's all hands on deck. We have a great relationship. We represent them in the retail auto network, so we're a big supporter of their products. And to me, it's just one of those things, timing maybe, budgets and other things that really made the difference. But I'm hoping that they'll be back in 2014, and maybe our results, might help accelerate that for them to get back in the sport on a full-time basis.
Let's go right here, David Newton, Holly Kane, Gary Long.
Yeah, David Newton, ESPN. Roger, you see a lot of young drivers out there that never get a break, never get a chance. A lot's been made about Brad getting that one chance in Ted Musgrave's truck back in 2007 for Junior to see him. Jimmy was talking yesterday about how if he not hit the wall at Watkins Glen in the Nationwide truck that Jeff Gordon may not have paid a lot of attention to him or not put a face with a name. Is that just a product of the way this sport is, that there are a lot of guys like Brad and Jimmy and those guys out there that can do what they're doing here, that they just need those breaks? And, you're a guy that's been studying talent for a long time. Have you seen guys just get overlooked? Or?
Well, I think if we go back and look at our team over the last, say, 20 years, we might not have looked deep enough, into the drivers that are out there. I think we're doing that now. Obviously, we work with Justin, work with Parker, Ryan Blaney, and I think that, we have to have these younger drivers on our radar screen because it takes time. You just cannot jump into this sport overnight and be at the top. It takes trucks, it takes Nationwide, and then obviously Cups. And I think there's a lot of young talent out there. But again, you've got to know how to win. So we have to look for drivers who have won an A series or multiple series. I think there has to be today, because the technology has gotten to be so much of a part of what's going on, this feedback between the engineering and the crew chiefs and the driver. And also then, of course, the main thing is we've got to have sponsors. So we have to have a commercial-oriented driver to a certain extent. So when you look at all these different attributes that you have to have by any particular candidate as a driver, but you got to build those. They might come with one, they might come with two, but to me, we're always looking now, for people. Lewis Hamilton, I guess, at McLaren, I understand that Ron Dennis hired him when he was just a young man driving go-karts. So to me, I think everybody in this garage area today is looking at the young talent to try to build their team.
Let's go Holly Kane, Gary Long, Jenna Fryer. Go ahead, Holly.
Holly Kane, NASCAR.com. Roger, I think because of all the success you've had in auto racing in general, some people still find it hard to believe that you haven't won a NASCAR Cup championship yet. Rusty told me yesterday he figured that you guys would have won 4 or 5 together when he was driving with you. What was the difference now? What clicked? What made it happen for you guys now after all these years?
Well, we've been close. We've won a lot of races. We haven't had as number of chances because when you look at our statistics, the number of starts that we've had on the team. So, and basically there's been some super competition out there. When you look at the great teams that we compete against, I think that what's happened, we've been able to, have a focus. And one of the things that probably that people maybe haven't even thought about is we've gone to 2 cars. And I can tell you that decision to run 2 cars where we're focusing, and if we've got something good, we can get it on both cars. And I think the fact that we had a little bit of a bumpy start with AJ did a great job for us, and I'm a big supporter of his going forward. Sam jumping in and supporting the opportunity to help Brad. But I think the 2-car team has helped us. I think from an engineering standpoint, we've stepped up our game. If you looked at our roster of people, we've probably added more people from in the engineering side of our business, our wind tunnel program, the guys that are building our cars now, the support we've had from Dodge. So I think it's a multitude of things that have made a difference. The business was a lot different in the 90s. We didn't have the technology. And to me, today, the cars are so tight with the templates and things you have to do. And we got a great driver. I think today Brad is young. And he certainly he's not on a plateau, that's for sure. Every race he gets better. I just watching him last week because I watch him from the spotter stand. I know when we're good, and I know when we're bad.
Let's go Gary Long, Jenna Fryer, and Lewis Frank. Go ahead, Gary.
Roger, Penske Racing in the last 14, 16 months has gone through the split with Kurt, the episode with AJ and the ramifications, the need to reshape your 2013 agenda. How does this equate to the normal ebbs and flows of this business for all the years you've been in it? And how has this impacted you personally, if at all?
Well, I think, I work in the business world every day. And, when you read the newspaper, something's happening. And every day isn't a good day. And I guess that I've decided every day's not a good day in racing also. But I think we're motivated. We've used racing, I've said it before, as a common thread, through our company. And to me, it shows the execution, the teamwork, and the integrity. And I guess that as long as we're able to demonstrate quality on the racetrack, and we have sponsors, like Miller, been with us now over 20 years, people like Shell Pennzoil, Discount Tire, and the folks that are coming with us and are giving us long-term commitments. That's giving us stability that maybe you didn't have, maybe some of the other teams haven't had, but that to me is going to give us a chance to build even a better platform as we go forward. To me personally, it's another day in the office.
Jenna Fryer, Lewis Frank, Brian Nelson. Go ahead, Jenna.
Jenna Fryer, AP. You said last week when asked why you didn't win, why you haven't won a Cup championship before, maybe that your focus hadn't always been over here. Has the addition of Brad made you focus a little bit more over here? Has he demanded more of your time?
Well, there's no question that, Brad is in contact with me every day, and you know how. So a text. I'm not a tweeter at this point. Maybe that's going to be next year. I don't know. I don't know what he's got for me. But he's passionate about the sport, and he wants me to be involved as he has the rest of the team. And I think that we've stepped it up. I'm very anxious to have Joey join. Joey seems to be the same kind of person. He's on the phone and things that he wants to be sure we get done. So I'd have to say that Brad has not only pushed me as an individual, but he's pushed the team in a positive direction and he's delivering. It's one thing when someone's pushing you and they don't deliver, but he seems to be able to give us that extra push, but deliver on the race weekends. And that's what we're expecting him to do this weekend.
Let's go Lewis Frank, Marty Smith, and Bob Pockris.
Lewis Frank of Reuters and Speed Week. Roger, you're not known as a speculator, wild gambler, maybe years ago with Penske truck, but Paul Wolf appears to have taken some chances and with some very good pit calls, maybe in connection with Brad. I was wondering, what qualities do you see in Paul that you admire?
Well, I think, Paul, the one thing about Wolf, he was a driver. He's had to build his own cars, and he certainly understands the business. Interesting, as you know, Brad works with paralyzed veterans, and after a couple of race weekends, he in fact, it was at Bristol, he has 4 or 5 of these paralyzed veterans come to the track, and we have a 2-seat car, and he takes them for a ride. It was interesting that Paul Wolf was on the track making some pretty fast laps. I said, maybe I can hire you as a driver, but he's got experience, and he's been the glue. I think he's been a good sounding board for Brad because he's been a driver and he understands the cars completely, and that's what it takes. He's calm, he's cool. There's been a lot of comparisons, with that relationship between Brad and Paul and Chad Knaus and Jimmy. Those guys are the best. And, if we can just be in their shadow and in their draft and stay with them this weekend, we're going to have a great season. But he's been a big help to us. But, Paul was out there. I mean, he had running cars with different drivers back in Nationwide. And Brad and I saw him as someone we could bring him on board. So this team has evolved. It's not something that you just overnight. It's taken some time. Certainly the championship on Nationwide was critical, and you think Brad's won now, I think 13 Nationwide races, 8 or 9 Cup races just in 3 years. So when you think about that, and many of those wins have been, with Wolf, so you'd have to say that he's a key part of the formula of our team.
Off to the right here, Marty Smith, and we'll go Bob Pockris and then Reed Spencer.
Marty Smith, ESPN. Mr. Penske, what attribute that Brad displays most surprises you now that you didn't see when you made the decision that he would be a guy you would hire?
Well, I think the most important thing that's happened, he's gained the respect in the garage area because, early on there were, he was rough, he was bumping people. There was with Carl Edwards and other people, but I think that he's emerged. He's learned, like a lot of the great drivers have gone through that, that rough patch. He's emerged, and I think that, to me, the speed that he's come from where he was when he first started with us to where he is today, smooth, understanding the car, and ultimately being a winner, to me is amazing. And he's done it in just 36 months with us. So when you put those stats on the ground and see what he's done, and he's got a great future ahead of him, and we expect him to deliver for us over a long period of time.
Let's go Bob Pockris, Reed Spencer, Mike Embry.
Bob Pockris, Sporting News. A lot has been made of Brad's upbringing in a racing family, and I was curious if you knew Bob Keselowski or knew that team at all before you ever met Brad.
Well, I knew the Keselowskis, Bob, very well because, owning the Michigan Speedway, they were our local guys. And they'd come out there, and I remember I didn't really met Brad specifically, but, Ron and Bob were guys that I knew very well out at the track because they'd come out there and unload and race it at the Michigan track. So, they're our local guys. And to me, his dad's a terrific person. Kay, his mom, they mortgaged everything for these kids to go racing. And I think people might not know that. And the fact that, Brad is really he's paying them back now because he's not only been able to support them as a family, but also, with the success he's had as an individual and also as a race driver.
Let's go Reed Spencer, Mike Embry, Jim Utter.
Reed Spencer with the NASCAR Wire Service. Roger, over the course of 3 years, when you hired Brad and when you promoted him to Cup, Kurt was part of the package. After Kurt's departure, are you surprised at how quickly he's been able to rise to the level of leadership that he has and fill that void that existed when Kurt left?
Well, obviously, that departure, we hadn't planned on that, but, as things worked out, it happened. And when it did, I sat down with Brad and said, you're going to have to be the leader of this team. And, he said to me many times when he was racing with Kurt, he said, I've got to get better so I can help Kurt. Interesting when you think about that. He said that to me not once but many times. And to think that, once Kurt left and he stepped into the leadership position, he's just taken it over. And I think the whole team feels that when he goes to a test and when he's dealing, whether it's with Sam and they debrief. I think a lot of things we've come together. We don't have two teams. That's one thing. We have one team. There's no question, because the interface, the way our shop's set up, the way we build our cars, where our crew chiefs sit, they're all together, just like you are here in this media room. You're side by side, not in different buildings, and I think that's helped us. And Brad's been a big catalyst, in that society.
Let's go Mike Embry. Then we'll go to Jim Utter, and then Al Pierce.
Mike Embry, Speed.com. Roger, you mentioned earlier your role as a spotter. I assume you're doing that Sunday. Talk some about that. I know you have a lot of folks that you employ that probably could fill that role, but you obviously want to do it. Talk about your role there.
Well, I'm kind of a coaching spotter. I'm Joey Meyer, and I don't know if you've listened to him, but I think he might be, one of the understated guys on the team. He doesn't set the car up and doesn't drive it, but I can tell you one thing. You listen to that radio and what his insight. I mean, just last week when Jeff, was in a mood to go after Boyer, Joey saw it. He told Brad ahead of time, so he even saw Brad slow down a little bit as he got into 3. I'm up there because, quite honestly, I can always watch the cars go by the start-finish line. I like to see if we're competitive, who's driving, what's going on the racetrack. And we've got professional spotters for all the guys. And, I come over from time to time, and I'll make a comment to Brad, when I think it's appropriate. But, I'm really, I guess I'm the backup guy if their battery goes down. That's about all.
All right, let's go with Jim Utter, Al Pierce, Nate Ryan.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer. Roger, you mentioned earlier about talking about Brad, and it's one thing to say something, but his ability to back it up and how much success he's had in a short period of time. Talking to Paul Wolf last week, he also said one of the reasons why we don't get too bent out of shape when Brad runs his mouth is because he always backs it up. And I just wondered if you thought, I know he's gained a lot of respect, but he still seems at times to rub some other competitors the wrong way. I wondered if you thought that was one of the reasons, not a sense of jealousy, so to speak, but just how quickly success is found him.
Well, anyone that's had the success that he has in a short period of time, people look up to drivers like that. But I think the quality that everyone would vote yes on, this guy's a race driver. All the other trappings, everything else we put on the Christmas tree, only make it look better. But as far as I'm concerned, he's consistent. I think he cares about the sport. He cares about the fans. And if you ask the officials, I think they feel that he's playing ball too. So I can't get into what people think about him. All I know is the people in the garage area, many people have come up to me and say, this guy's really doing a job for you. And these are owners who today would love to have him drive for them. So to me, those are my peers, that are saying, hey, you got the best in the business. So that's how my report card, not what might be said by someone else in a different conversation. I think even Carl Edwards would say, that this young man has really come a long way. And those guys had some real tough fights there for a while. I think that's all changed.
Al Pierce, Nate Ryan, Mark Ashenfelter.
Yeah, Roger, Al Pierce, Motor Week. As a measure of how much you want this thing Sunday, as a yardstick measurement, would you give up next year's Indy 500 win for Sunday? That's just a measuring stick.
I was just going to use the top of the flagpole as my measuring stick, how much I want it. Top of the American flagpole. That's a hard one to ask. Obviously, this comes first, and something that we've never achieved as a company, as a team. And to me, that's the most important thing I have to deal with right now is Sunday afternoon's race here at Homestead. So I'll answer the question on Indianapolis after Sunday.
Let's go Nate Ryan, Mark Ashenfelter, Dwight Drum.
Nate Ryan, USA Today. Roger, talking about how Brad talks to you daily and is so involved as a leader, can you give any specific examples? Is he talking personnel moves with you? Are you guys planning ahead for next year with Ford stuff? I mean, what sort of stuff is he in there at a very specific level?
I would say all the above. I mean, we're talking about personnel. We're talking about many times, he has a list, and I guess he and Paul, what I've asked them to do, it's easy to say we want to do this, but generally they provide me with a list of the things that they feel we can make the team better and the car better. In fact, to the point, Brad thought we should do our fitness center. We should upgrade our fitness center. Nothing to do with racing, but the team, the human capital. So we go through that list, and I sit down with Mike Nelson and Travis and sit down with Tim Cindric, and we check those things off. And I'm looking for the list because the list has made us a lot better. And to me, we're talking about our sponsors and what does he need to do to be sure he's delivering what the sponsors want. Obviously, we're talking a lot, today about younger drivers that we can bring on the team. He's a big supporter, and we've had conversations about how to make his truck faster. So it's a myriad of topics, but they're all focused, on our team and racing.
Go ahead, Mark.
Mark Ashenfelder, ESPN. You mentioned the young drivers. What are the plans for Ryan Blaney for next year?
Well, right now, I know there's some people asked me some question when I walked in. We've signed Sam up to drive the number 12 car, Alliance car, in Nationwide next year. We have a commitment for a number of Cup races, which on a third car, which Sam will be there to run those races. And Blaney, at this point, we're considering him to be to drive the truck. Haven't announced it yet. It's not a done deal, but like to see him in the truck, and also we'll provide him some Nationwide rides. So we started with him, maybe run 2 or 3 this year, and I think he'll end up with 7 or 8. So we think that he's a fine young man, and he's got a lot to learn, like they all do. But I think he's certainly again coming from a family that's been racing, and he seems to have the talent. There's a lot of good young talent out there today, so we certainly want to support him.
Dwight?
Dwight DrumRaceTake.com. Mr. Penske, with all the great accomplishments at Penske Racing, how would you compare and rate the chasing the championship, Sprint Cup championship in 2012?
Well, we've talked about it. Tim Cindric and I have, and our people. This is the pinnacle of achievements that we could get in motor racing. This NASCAR Sprint Cup and the competition, the 38 weekends, and it's. I think I heard Jimmy Johnson or someone say it's a war out there. It is, and to be standing at the end with the American flag in your hand when it's all over, and be the champion, is something real special. And we've not achieved it. And I've said I was goal oriented earlier, and one of our goals is to win this championship. And I kid these guys, said I don't want to sit down in the front row anymore. I want to be up on the stage so I see who's at the party.
Take one more. Anybody else have a final question for Roger? I guess we got 3, actually. Mike, and David. Mike Brunell, Mike Mulhern, and we'll end with David.
Roger, Detroit's a stick and ball town, and a lot of the sports, stories up there about the Lions and the Tigers and the Red Wings. But where would you rate this if, as a story, if Brad can win on Sunday for Detroit, for Michigan? It would be a first for a Michigan-born driver.
Well, obviously, I've been in business in Michigan for a long time, lived in Michigan, and we bought the Speedway back so many years ago. And motor racing, we come to the track and race 2 times a year, so it's not like 100 games in baseball and so many football games that they have with the Lions. But I would say this, that if we could bring back to Michigan and to Detroit the NASCAR championship, I think it's a big deal. And for the state, for the city, and obviously for Rochester Hills, for Brad, and as a big Detroit supporter, if I could do that, it would be a great time for us. And I'm sure that everyone that loves racing will say, hey, it's about time.
Mike Mulhern?
your advice is always well respected. What would you suggest Dodge do for 213 or 214? You've talked with those people for 10 years. What would your advice be to them for NASCAR?
Well, I've talked to Dodge about, what might be available. We've got, 16 nationwide cars and probably 60 engines. And I said that it might be a good idea if there's some young people out there, people you want to support, could you take the things that we have, we'd supply them, and they could take them and run them. But I think there's a big interest. But as you know, we got to step back a minute. Chrysler has come out of bankruptcy. They've done a great job in their market share. They're focusing on their retail business. SRT is just one of their lines of business. But I think Reed Bigland, who's been attended the races along with Beth Peretta and Ralph Gilles, I think there's a strong interest, to get back in. And I think they looked at what was available to them going into 13 with just a year's notice, and they weren't able to put the combination maybe together that they wanted. But I see them very interested in the sport and will support the sport. And I know that the Viper is a big program for them that they have in GT going forward. But I hope to see them back in 14. But, we've got some parts and pieces that, might be pretty good for someone. That's a sales call I just made.
Final question. David, raise your hand if we could get final question right here for Roger.
Willing on a light note, what do you think of Brad's fine for having a phone in the car? Did you support him having the phone in the car? He got a lot of publicity for NASCAR at Daytona.
Well, I could say this, but I probably shouldn't have. I don't know if it was a Verizon phone or a Sprint phone, right? No, on a serious note, Brad's got to work that out with NASCAR. I'm just the car owner, and if he has to pay a fine, that's his fine. I got to pay mine. He has to pay his. So I think it's all fine.
Roger, thank you so much for coming in. Congratulations on a good year so far, and I know you'd like to go out with a great year on Sunday. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.